Om Jayu Shantihi, Antariksham Shantihi, Prithivi Shantihi, Apoho Shantihi, Oshadaya Shantihi, Vanashpataya Shantihi, Vishvadeva Shantihi, Brahma Shantihi, Sarvam Shantihi, Shantareva Shantarsoma Shantareti, Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. There's peace in the sky and peace on earth. There's peace on land and peace in the waters. There's peace in the trees, creepers, herbs, and flowers. There is peace with the gods and peace with man, woman, and child. Verily, this peace is in everything and everywhere. May that very peace enter into us and permeate us to the very core of our being. For that peace is Brahman. And there shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us. May that Brahman sustain us. And may that Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, and with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. So we're going to start this class off with a devotional wisdom hymn. Veda Vedanta Vidyaya Mega Shamala Murtaye Pumsam Mohana Pupaya Punya Sokaya Mangalam Shri Sita Ramachandra Shri Sita Ramachandra Shri Sita Ramachandra Shri Sita Ramachandra, 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 Sarva Mangala Lokeshindriya Mahaniya Gunabdaye Chakravarti Tanujaya Sarvabhaumaya Mangalam Shri Sita Ramachandra 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 Shri Sita Ramachandra. So a few verses from this beautiful hymn to Sita, the Divine Mother Incarnation, and Rama, the avatar of that age, is a good fitting way in which we can start a new series that we're going to plunge into with its 3 classes. And the chart that I've created for it, I will show you soon, but basically the subtitle we're looking at is what the modern West needs to learn from the ancient East. And the main title has that Sanskrit word in it of very many syllables, adhidaivavidya. Adi is the original, or and daiva means divine, and vidya means knowledge. So this is the original divine knowledge that was taught. Particularly came into clarity when Lord Kapila was on earth many thousand years, even before the Gita period, because we find Sri Krishna mentioning of sages, I am Lord Kapila, in the Gita. So he goes way back, and you might say that this is under an umbrella term called Samkhya Yoga. That is, you'll find out Samkhya Yoga has those 24 cosmic principles, which we've been concentrating on and learning, as that's part of Brahman's nature. That is a Sakala Brahman, that is Brahman with form. And the seers feel like in order to gain enlightenment or illumination of mind, that those are tattvas, are called, or principles, need to be kept in mind and connected with one another. So this is an ancient teaching that goes way back. So that's why we want to try and bring it back from the ancient East into modern times. There could be some immediate questions crop up, because first five things that we find on the list pretty much are the five senses. So what does the East have to teach the West, or anyone for that matter, about the five senses? Everyone has them: seeing, tasting, touching, hearing, smelling. The functions go on through the five senses. So a question might be, well, what can you teach us about that? And the East would immediately respond, well, that's an easy question. Basically, how to withdraw them from the objects. Because the objects take over the whole attention of the senses. So basically, beings are concentrating on objects, and that concentration, if it's done for pleasure and for possession, basically those two things, then it causes attachment, and then that attachment turns into a kind of obsession, and that obsession then imbalances the mind, and it disturbs the relationship between the outer senses, the five inner senses, which is definitely something that the East can teach us about, because we're not thinking in terms of our dream state being another echelon of consciousness. We're thinking it's just sort of a figment of the brain, and only the outer world is real. So immediately the East could step forward and tell us about our dream senses, or the subtle senses, and also the subtle elements, the tanmatras are called, that go with the five gross elements. And we can look at the chart and just refresh our mind about those. But basically, since singing about Sri Ramachandra, I can read the English to that for you, so we can see where we're going with that. The first verse I sang, O thou of sky blue complexion, Krishna and Ram, known for this kind of grayish blue complexion that's very beautiful. Auspicious of the most auspicious, who embodies higher wisdom contained in the Vedanta. The whole verse started out Vedantya with those words about these ancient darshana, whose form defines the word beautiful, and whose divine descent is from the purest of lineages, who teaches the ancient wisdom. That's the adhidaivavidya. The most auspicious of the auspicious, the prince of Koshala, that was the kingdom in which he was born, ruler of the heavenly kingdoms, whose nature is perfection itself. So we're in the first two verses of this hymn, which has 12 verses, we find out that the ancient adhidaivavidya, or the ancient wisdom, is being mentioned already as under the auspice of Sita and Ram. So this chart here can help us gain a little bit of perspective on, because there's a beautiful painting of Sita and Ram and his half-brother Lakshman. And you can see there the indication he's making. All around there is the form of Brahman. That is, there's the tree, the deer, the earth they're standing on, the rock nearby, the sky behind them. And all of these things are, he's pointing out, to be reflections of Brahman. And to explain that better, he says to her and to his brother, who is half-brother, who's listening, I shall tell you the truth about the paramatman, the Atman and the unatman. So you see, this goes way back, even way before Buddhism, the term unatman, non-self. And you can see how this ancient avatar is putting it into great perspective. You might see the real, say the real, the apparently real, and the unreal, if you wanted to put it in more current terms. But he says, I will tell you the truth about these three. They're like the sky, which has three divisions, all pervasive, associated with objects, and reflected in a water tank. So too is consciousness, pure consciousness associated with the intellect and reflected in the intellect. So you find out that this open sky or open space is called ether, or the akasha, it's the word in Sanskrit for that, is indivisible. It's not interrupted by objects, and it's homogeneous always. It can't be separated out. But it does get separated out in the case of, say, an earthen jug. Gautam, they call that teaching. And if you hear that word in Sanskrit, you immediately think of, oh, they're talking about how the air inside the jug and the air outside the jug have been separated. But it's actually the same air. It's just that there's this earthen jug around the air that's contained within. So I was reading about that in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna just yesterday and started to write a God log on it. He told one person, is there too much clay in your jug? He says to him, and the devotee said, what do you mean? He says, well, the more clay there is in your jug, the less air there is in it, or the less water you can put in it. So it's as if the jug has too much clay in it, it's too thick, then that lessens the amount of air or water that can be placed in it. Of course, he's talking about the human ego chasing out Brahman, chasing out consciousness, so that it gets very, very little of consciousness is found in any particular person. Well, that's definitely understandable in terms of objects, like Ram is pointing out here, but in terms of human beings, unfortunately, it becomes the case too. And when too much ego gets into them, then that chases out all the purity of consciousness. When he says consciousness is pure, that's the first thing he's pointing out. That's all pervasive, and that's like the ether. And then its consciousness is associated with the intellect. So when it comes into the thinking mind, then the mind can use that consciousness to perceive everything. And in fact, even lower wisdom and higher wisdom begins to become afforded to the mind by the presence of consciousness in the intellect. We call that intelligence with a capital I in our tradition. We don't think of it just as an intellect that contains something and possesses it, but an intelligence is actually one with it. So that's still reflective consciousness, like reflected in the tree, reflected in the deer. So this is how they're explaining, Ram is explaining the apparent divisions of consciousness. Atman, the Paramatman, the Supreme, is homogeneous, all-pervasive, and then the Atman itself is that associated, contained inside the five shis, or with the five senses and everything. We can look at that in a minute. And then finally, you have this consciousness that doesn't flow through an intelligent principle. It's just, as it were, present in all things, like the prana. We'll also look at the 5 kinds of prana to understand that. In fact, Ram explains that somewhat when he says here, ignorant persons with distorted understanding cast superimposed divisions over the partless, unchanging witness consciousness, like the sense of agency that is only reflected in the buddhi that I just mentioned with objects as a sense of owning them. So that's that sense of agency that's reducing the intelligence of the human being to be able to detach from things and to fall under the problem of ownership. These movements and partitions are all assumed by reflective consciousness, reflected consciousness. The existence of the jiva is also assumed by it. That's the individual soul. But all reflections are illusory. Jiva and buddhi are false separations. Only Brahman is partless, indivisible. Divisibility in Brahman is due only to its adjuncts. So all of these things, sky, air, earth, animals, trees, you heard me just chant about them, right? Om Chayu Shantihi, Antariksham Shantihi, Prithivi is earth, Shantihi, Apoho Shantihi. So you'll hear that they're saying there's peace in all of these things, in all of these adjuncts they're talking about. And of course, that peace is going to be obvious if you have an intelligence like Ram and Sita and Lakshmana have, that you can look at all things and see them as reflections of Brahman, rather than say the only existence. Like people are obsessed with objects because that's the only thing that can make them happy. That's of course right there another thing in which the ancient Eastern wisdom can teach the modern Westerners who are attached to material objects, is how to withdraw the five senses from the objects. So this is sort of accenting the point of the main chart that I'm going to show you. But I thought we'd start with this. You can see here, jivas, animals, insects, plants are all reflected consciousness. And of course, jiva is the body, mind mechanism, the individual soul that's attached to the physical sheath and the sheath of prana and so forth. And then in this bubble here, appearance of the buddhi in the intelligence is associated consciousness. So that's where we come closer to the all-pervasive Brahman by refining our intellects. If the mind is made non-dual and the thoughts are elevated, as Sri Ramakrishna says, made buoyant by higher thought, by higher thinking. And if the buddhi is sharpened and honed so that it can penetrate through this problem of false appearance or false superposition, then you'll find in that mind or in that great soul, be able to see everything simply as reflected consciousness associated with the intellect. And then we'll be able to part that out from pure conscious awareness, which is a difficult thing to do because it's formless. So if you got used to, as the West has gotten used to, looking at things, objects as being real, as to use Vedantic language, and you have to find out the meaning of what unreal is, it really means changing. So you look at Brahma and you see that it's unchanging throughout time, throughout space, and throughout name and form, and throughout changefulness, like Maya going on, appearance of things. That one Brahman stays unblemished and undivided, and doesn't get affected by things that the sublations or its adjuncts are suffering. That's so it. In a word, it doesn't get limited. Brahman doesn't get limited, but consciousness and intelligence, of course, are very limited in the tree and in the animal, and unfortunately here in the individual jiva, very limited there. And so you want to expand your mind's awareness to know Brahman, as the peace chants tell us, and expand your whole intelligence and refine it so that you can be like these great souls, looking at everything, knowing the categories that they fall into, and knowing what the limitations of each category is. So it's a good starter for introducing this topic. So let's look at the main chart as some of the categories that they want us to learn, which are a part of the adhidaivavidya. I think we started out with a musical selection. I want to read to you the Varaha Upanisad, but only a chapter. And so that's why you saw this advertised, this class series, as being a stroll through the Varaha Upanishad. I want it to seem like you're just walking through nature, noting things like that last chart. Like your intellect is refined and your mind is not brooding. Your thoughts are buoyant, and that's your true nature. That's the way you always are. It's the way the seers are and the rishis are. And so if they were that way and then they were to come upon an Upanishad, they would read it entirely differently than what most people would understand when they read it. So I'll just read a page of an Upanishad for you. Varaha is the incarnation of Vishnu. So really this is Vishnu talking to one of our favorite aspirants, Ribu. And Ribu appears in other Upanishads too, being taught by Dattatreya and being taught by his father. So if we find Ribu showing up around illumined souls a lot throughout the Upanishads, like, what do you know? What can you tell me? I'm very sincerely seeking enlightenment and so forth. And so this idea came to me when I made a Dharma visit to the West Coast a few months ago, and there was a satsang. So I said, well, let's just all sit down. I want to read you a page of the Upanishad. That wasn't recorded or videoed. But we all sat there, and I read this page of the Upanishad because they had all learned about the 24 cosmic principles. Some of them may have expanded their understanding to Shaivites' 36 cosmic principles, but Vishnu is talking about 96 cosmic principles. And so I thought, that's over the top. So let's see what cosmic principles are all about when they get expanded in the mind of souls. What are these other principles that we're supposed to know? How do those contribute to our illumination of mind and to our expansion of life and our flow of wisdom? How does that happen? Because you can see this chart. I don't know if it's being shown yet, but you can see there's a lot of flowing going on in this chart. From the inner heavens, you might say, there are these waterfalls always plunging down from the ocean of consciousness down through rishis and yogis and so forth is the idea. And as they come down, they're bringing with them all the ancient wisdom. And it's up to those that are on earth in whatever age to be able to open up and drink of this nectar of immortality, or nectar of non-dual truth. We sometimes hear it. If they close off to it, then life becomes full of drudgery and meaningless, and unfortunately full of suffering and miseries. But if they stay open to it, then life becomes a divine life, or what Jesus called eternal life. You need an eternal life, not just a life of along the river with gathering food and living in huts and so forth. So if you want to learn this, follow me, and then I'll make you fishers of men. All of that came about in that period in our own Christian heritage here in the West. And Christ was teaching those original principles and having you meditate on them, like in the Garden of Gethsemane and so forth. And he was telling his apostles like John about them and about the Word. So that was in the Middle East. But now in the West, you see, that's the subtitle of this chart again, what the modern West needs to learn from the ancient East. And so this is this adhidaivavidya, or these eternal principles, and how to operate them, I'd say, because they are in operation. The 5 senses, the 5 elements would be the first 10 that you'd usually think of. Those are going on almost automatically, aren't they? Rivers are flowing, mountains are forming, volcanoes are going off, winds are blowing. They're just going on naturally in nature. And but mankind is pursuing for limited ends, the powers of nature, and to try and to accumulate or amass wealth and to experience greater pleasure with them. So if an ancient civilization like India were to have audience with some of the Western thinkers, savants, you might call them, and criticize or make suggestions about their lifestyle, you're too attached to the five elements with the senses. We've never been that way. We've always withdrawn from the objects. We can withdraw our senses from the objects like a tortoise can withdraw its limbs when it's in danger. That's an ancient teaching again by Sri Krishna in the Gita. Sri Krishna is the next manifestation of this very person we just looked at, called Sri Ram. They were the same avatar in different ages. So then these are some of the things that we should sit up and take note of and change our thinking about. Again, it's not a lot of it's not, some of it's going to be a surprise to people who are new to this darshana, to this ancient wisdom. They've been thinking in old, quotidian, worn out ways for too long, and they're not being satisfied. Their peace of mind's being taken away. But some of it's going to be just, yeah, I already know that, but the main point here is that you're not putting it in proper order and in proper operation. So this is why Ribu wants to know when he comes to Lord Vishnu and as the incarnation as a boar. It's an interesting story, but basically in that age, when he was manifesting, he has like some 9 incarnations, Vishnu, and or 10 if you add in the one that's supposed to come, becoming still. And that's a song written by Jayadevi. He was singing about the 10 incarnations of Vishnu, and the boar was one of them early on. I mean, the turtle was early too, interestingly enough. And the fish was one of them. So the Lord's manifesting in these forms in order to inform beings in those particular times what's happening to them with the 5 elements and the 5 senses, which is all in development, being developed, isn't it, over time, sort of like in a way of evolution, how it goes about. So in the case of Varaha, Vishnu decided, because there's an evil on earth in every age, it's kind of a concentration of problems, then in that particular age, the only way that this evil could be destroyed was from underneath. And so Vishnu said, how can I get underneath this being? And then he looked at all the animals, like Ram was looking at all the animals here, reflected consciousness. And he said, oh, well, if I was a boar, I could get underneath because the boar's tusks go up. All the other animals that are vicious and can tear apart and can destroy and kill and be used for this task, their teeth go down, but the boars go up and they slice upward. So I'll take a boar incarnation. That way I'll be able to destroy that demon who walks around with all his essentials underneath and protected. So Varaha came and as the boar and destroyed that evil from underneath. So the Lord is always there in every age, is the point, destroying evil in different forms. So this is kind of an explanation of why he will take on different forms and different ages. So you probably noticed, for instance, that some animals are much more intelligent than others. Some humans are much more intelligent than others. Some trees are much more fruitful than others, and so forth and so on. So it's all a matter of one Atman taking different forms according to the limitation or the lack of limitation in any particular form. That's how everything is one consciousness, but delimited by the form. So this is why we need to know 96 cosmic principles. How is consciousness being delimited? And how can we go beyond those limitations to expand our consciousness to know Brahman, even here as a jiva, because we want the jiva to be a jivatma, and then we want it to be paramatma. And so we ourselves are undergoing this expansion of consciousness through forms, through different lifetimes, until such a time when we won't choose to be limited by a form anymore. That's possible too, called moksha or mukti or enlightenment. So just take a big breath, and for about 3 minutes here, listen to what's said by the boar incarnation to Ribu. He practiced penance for 12 divine years. That's a long time, by the way. At the end of that time, the Lord appeared to him in the form of a boar. He said, "Rise up and choose your boon." The sage got up from meditation, prostrated himself, and said, "Lord, I will not in my dream wish of thee anything that is desired by worldly people. All the Vedas, scriptures, the Itihasas, all the hosts of other sciences, as well as Lord Brahma and all the devas, the gods, speak of emancipation as resulting from a knowledge of thy nature. So impart to me that science of Brahman which treats thy nature." How's that for a sentence? Been sitting there waiting for a vision of God, and the Lord appears and asks, "What do you want?" He's all ready. You see, the first thing he says, "I will never ask you for anything worldly." You see, like my point here, my senses attached to the objects. Can I have more objects, please? Can I have more wealth? Can I get more pleasure out of what I have? That's not on the mind of a person seeking emancipation from those very things which are limiting them. What do you want then, as it was? So impart to me the science of your nature. So this is outer nature of Brahman. Inner nature, no doubt, is formlessness, but what can the Lord say about that to anybody? You have to yourself experience that for yourself by going into formlessness yourself. Meditating like Ribu's been doing for 12 divine years. That's 12 years in the realm of the devas, by the way. That's hundreds and thousands of years in our time. So sitting in this Indra Loka, probably meditating as a yogi, and then gaining the merit by which to see an incarnation of Vishnu, which goes by like that. Nobody can see, it's too swift. But you happen to be there when he's incarnated for a purpose of destroying evil. You see him, you ask him. That's like 16 apostles I know of who were there in Bengal, in Calcutta, near the Dakshинeshwar temple when Sri Ramakrishna manifested not too long ago. So that's the first sloka. Varaha says, some disputants hold that there are 24 tattvas. Some say 36, whilst others maintain that there are 96. I shall relate them to you in order. Learn this with an attentive mind. The organs of sense are 5. Ear, skin, eye, and others. The organs of action are 5. Mouth, hands, legs, and others. The pranas are 5. The rudimentary principles, tanmatras, are 5. Manas, Buddha, Chitti, and Ahamkara are 4. That's the fourfold mind, right? Antakarna means the inner organ. Thus, those that know Brahman know these to be the 24 cosmic principles. Now, I wasn't going to go into it at length, but if you're looking at Samkhya and you're looking at Lord Kapila and you've already learned the 24 cosmic principles, it's very interesting here that he's not placing the 5 elements in there yet. See that the gauge over here for you, 24, add in 12 more, 36, add in the rest, 96, you see. So this is how Samkhya viewed it. This is how Shaivism added to it. And this is how the avatar is seeing an additional 50 or so cosmic principles that have to be known. So, I mean, you can look at this later or at the break and so forth. But basically, my point here was that he doesn't add the 5 gross elements into the 24. Lord Coppola did. It all starts with the five gross elements: air, earth, fire, water, and ether. What he is doing, though, which I've always longed to see in all my explorations of the different darshanas and philosophies of India, he's putting the five vital airs in instead, and he's saving the five elements to go in with the 30 to make 36. Those are the pranas, the five pranas. You don't find them mentioned by Lord Coppola in the Samkhya Yoga. So the pranas are, the energy which connects everything, outward and inward. Psychic prana is what connects your thoughts to higher levels of thinking, like this intellect we're just talking about, that needs to know how to discriminate between what's pure and what's reflected, and what's reflected and what doesn't even exist, what's imaginative, because there are many things that are not real, just totally unreal, like son of a barren woman. That's not going to be real. Nobody's going to be convinced that a barren woman ever had a son. It's totally contradictory. So these are figments in people's mind. They're making up unreal things and causing them to be real outside. That's not even reflected consciousness. That's just not true. And it's what's not true that's causing suffering in the world. It's just absolutely not true. And they're making it true with their thought process. So they have their own list of cosmic principles, you might say. 24 unreal cosmic principles, maybe hundreds and hundreds of them. Phantasms of the mind, imaginations, projections. And let's start adding in, the five passions and the six infirmities and the nine antarayas, things that people are suffering from that they can get over. They don't have to suffer from these things, but since they do, they consider them real. So we're getting into a whole host of things that people are holding on to when they don't need to, right? So does the West need to learn from the East how to let go of these? I say yes. So don't get taken off guard just by your first one here, five senses. Well, I already know those. No, you just know how to attach them to things unreal. That's what you know. The East knows how to detach them if they once got attached, and maybe knows how to never get them attached in the first place. Because when the five senses look out on the objects, and it's a yogi who's operating them, he's saying, I don't want those. Those aren't real. Those are attachments that will lead me to suffering. I think I'll just let them go. And so are people walking around the Himalayas and so forth, even in modern times, which have given everything up. Like, our 16 apostles of Sri Ramakrishna, 12 apostles of Christ. Of course, they gave things up after they heard. But basically, this is the first thing that comes up in this Varaha Upanisad. Some disputants hold that there are 24 cosmic principles, some 36, others 96. I will relate them. So here he related the first 24. Let's go on, because this will be quick. Besides these 24, the wise hold the quintuplicated elements to be five. There they are. That's where he starts to bring in the five gross elements. Air, earth, fire, water, and ether come in. Besides these, there are earth, water, fire, and he uses vayu and akasha, means air and akasha. Why didn't they just say air and akasha? Because these are names of gods. So another thing they can teach us. So, the five elements, huh? Well, who are the gods of the five elements? What do you mean? There are no gods, That's immediately where the Westerner would go. Does it mean there's a God to fire? There's a God to water? I didn't know that. We studied in our seminar, Weekend for Less, we studied all the bijams, the deities connected to them, and what the elements, how the elements figure in. When the Tibetan Buddhists teach you to meditate, they teach you where the five elements are associated with, and what the poisons and nectars are, and who the deities are in your mantra, isn't it? So isn't this what the East has to teach to the West? Because the West doesn't know. The West knows the five elements and the five senses. They don't know the gods of them. They don't know the deities in them. And they don't know how to withdraw them, therefore. Oh, I'm having trouble with this, like alcoholism. I'm obsessed with a liquid. So maybe I should pray to the God of liquid to help me. And maybe he'll help me dissociate or detach from my habit of drinking or my habit of eating, see, or my habit of breathing. Breathing only with something else added in, like tobacco or other horrible things. This is called detaching the senses from objects that are made of the five elements that are all being used in the wrong orientation, right? Wrong orientation. So the bodies are three: gross, subtle, and causal. So all of you know that because I've taught it to you. It's one of the things I pulled out early in SRV history some 30 years ago. I say, well, how do you get detached from the physical body? People don't want to. They want to be the physical body. They think they are the physical body. Well, then there's a way you could actually get around that. Instead of taking away their physical body, you can say, I'm going to add two more. You have a physical body, fine, but you also have a subtle body and a causal body. That's adhidaivavidya. And who knows it? Who knows where to find them? Who knows how to reach them? Who knows how to operate them? Just the yogis, just the luminaries know this. And that's why they live such divine lives. And we don't. So basically, that's why a very powerful thing that has to be included in, and you'd have to go into something that's beyond 36 to find them. Oh, I have like three bodies, they told me. Well, what is my subtle body and what is my causal body and what's in them? I have charts on that for you. Sorry, I had to stop there because that's just a big one to me. It's kind of obvious that senses and objects are giving people problems, so that's a problem. But it's not a problem to find out you have three bodies. It's just common sense. If you didn't have three bodies, you wouldn't go to heaven because you can't take the physical body to heaven. You think that you can take the physical body with you, even Christians tell you can't do that. So what is it that goes to heaven? It's a subtle body that goes there. So learn this, find it out. And what's beyond heaven, formlessness, it's a causal body that everything gets drawn back up into. Mano naburi shashura tanmatram indriyam nabuddha panchakam. I just named, 15 or 20 things there that all get taken back up to the soul when you dissolve the mind stream back to the Atman. Everything has to go back where it came from. That's all. So that's a big one to learn about your three bodies. States of consciousness are three. Oh, really? What are those? Waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. The Advaitists want you to learn that. It's called non-duality. The Munis know the total collection of tattvas to be 36. So the Munis are, beyond the knowers of Samkhya Yoga. They're going to add in all that I just talked about so that you get 36. So you might say that's the next step for people after they learn about 24 cosmic principles, that, oh, what are those other 12? I'm very interested in those. And that's going to fill in the adhidaivavidya's second plateau, you might call it. Okay, along with these, we'll get into the rest. With these tattvas, there are 6 changes. And, both Buddhism and Vedanta have those: birth, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death, basically. And there are also 6 infirmities, see? And those are things like hunger and thirst. and grief and delusion are in there, he says. Then there are 6 sheaths: skin, blood, flesh, fat, marrow, and bones. So when he talks about sheaths here, he's not talking about the 5 sheaths of Advaita, which was later. He's talking about the sheaths inside of the physical body alone. This is what the Buddhists call, the charnel pit meditation, right? It's that you're supposed to look at your body and find out what's in it, and then it's going to gross you out. See? Basically, it's a very psychological approach to getting rid of your attachment to the body, if you're strong enough to do it. Like I said, to me, a better way of doing it is add in 2 bodies rather than take away the one physical body everyone's attached to. But if you're strong enough, you can listen to your Buddhist teacher and he'll tell you, well, let's look at the body. The charnel pit meditation, we'll call this. The skin, that's not too bad. It's kind of nice, actually. Blood, oh, I don't know about that. Fat, marrow, bones, starts to get worse as you take apart the physical body with all of its problems. So those are said to be 6 of these additional 96. Vishva, Taijasa, and Pragya are the 3 aspects of the jiva. So that's again Advaita Vedanta teaching. Vishva is the body that goes with your waking state, and Taijasa is the body that goes with your dream state, and Pragya is the body that goes with your causal state. See, that's intelligence itself, Pragya. So you're very intelligent at your root. You're pure intelligence at your root. If they're calling you Pragya in your deep sleep state, that must be very powerful. Must be close to the formlessness of Brahman, you see. So that's how you're going back inside to get to formlessness, should you want to. A lot of people are just like, well, let's go back to body quick. It's the physical earth for me. That's all I want, you see. And so what can you do? You could teach them the 24 cosmic principles and teach them how to detach. It's my point here. Then he says, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are 3 gunas. Finally, we find a seat for them, right? Because they're in the 24 cosmic principles. They're mentioned, but they're mentioned in accord with the mind. But now you have a place for the 3 gunas as an origin for nature. That is how everything is inert. All of a sudden, what happened? Everything got active, dynamic even. Oh, it got bounced again, but it's not inert anymore, you see. So this Trigunas is unique teaching in India for those. So let's add those 3 in, to make sure that we learn about them. Prabdha, Sanchita, and Agamin are the 3 karmas. So you've heard me teach this before too, through the decades we've been together, because a lot of people are just glibly saying, oh, I've got my karma, or boy, he sure got his karma, or I hope I don't have karma coming. But that's just one karma they're talking about. Basically, when they talk like that, they're talking about what's already manifested, right? So that's prarabdha. So everyone's thinks about karma, whether they know it or not, or have a word for it or not, they're thinking prarabdha. That's which is already coming into existence as I live my life. But they don't talk about sanchita, where the prarabdha got caused. So everyone's completely stultified as to why these things are happening to them. You see, it's so simple. Go back to what caused the prarabdha. That's called sanchita. Also, what's going to happen to me in the future is based upon, if I know my prarabdha and I neutralize it, then I won't have agami later. Because people are thinking, oh, I've got such karma to pay off. That's later, isn't it? Why should you fall a victim to your karma that happens later? You should, you can annul it right now. This is why Holy Mother said, she who wrote about your destiny in the book of destiny can also erase it. You see, so go to the mother and say, have you written something about me there? O thou most beautiful, she who holds pleasure and holds pain, doer of good, who art thou? By thee, the waters of existence are whirled and tossed in mighty waves. Is it, O Mother, to restore this universe's broken harmony that thou, without cessation, art at work? See, Vivekananda sees the mother of karma, Valaharini Devi, and he writes a beautiful song to her. I know that it's you that holds in her hands dread karma's ropes. I know it's you that holds that. But on the other hand, you're the doer of good. It's not like she's holding it there because she's impeding you. She's holding it there because you created the ropes of karma, not her. So she's holding on to them. So when you get free, she'll release her grasp. Let go thy hold, sannyasa bold. Say Om Tat Tat Om, you see. So we can't blame the mother, the Mahashakti, the Mahamaya, Mahaprakriti, the mother of nature, for the situation we're in. I don't buy it. And there are people who do. People who are great thinkers who do blame her for everything. That's ridiculous. Vivekananda says she's the doer of good. She'll release you from all of this. May she, the primal guide, my refuge be. May she never turn her auspicious face away from me, her child, forevermore. And so he's like total refuge in her, knowing that she may hold all the karmas of all beings, but that's because they have to have a place to go. You see, actions you can't just go out there and do something and not pay for it. It seems that way, but it's not happening that way, is it? And good begets good too. So people are in that problem. I've been going on too long about this, but here's what I mean about what the East can teach the West. 3 kinds of karma here, not just one, and they're very well connected and very well explained. I mean, probably the best exponent of karma is him, Sri Ramchandra. And then, since he was Krishna in the Gita too, you get good teachings about karma there. So add in those 3 for sure. Talking, lifting, walking, excreting, and enjoying are 5 more. Those are the organs of action. So he also saves those for a much later date in the list. And there's also these: thought, certainty, egoism, compassion, memory, all the functions of the manas, the mind, like complacency, sympathy, and indifference. So he's over here talking about these various functions of mind. Those are 8 I just read. The 8 functions of mind. Well, that's a yoga psychology that we could very much benefit by looking into. And further, he says there's dik, D-I-K, the 4 quarters. Now he's starting to talk about space. And what's in space? The deities. Vayu, air, that's the god of air. Sun, that's the god of the sun. Last week I chanted mantras to the god of the sun to start the class, right? And the weather got good. I noticed. Maybe there's a connection. Varuna, Ashvin Devas, Agni, god of fire, Indra, the god of all gods, Upendra and Mritu, death. Then there's the moon, Chandra, and the 4-faced Brahma, and there's Rudra, Lord Shiva. There's Kshetragya, that one who knows the field, knows all these fields. And there's Ishvara. Now it's starting to sound like the 36 cosmic principles of Shaivism, isn't it? Or as you add those 12 other on top of the 24 cosmic principles, inward lands and inward devis and devas and gods begin to show up. And now you know where they are and how, and you also know where you are going when you depart the body, what heaven is, what's beyond heaven. All of that's contained in consciousness. And you're just restricted to the 5 elements and the 5 objects back here on earth. Well, what about all the rest of that that's in consciousness? You're going to limit yourself to looking that way and create karmas in that way, to be reborn again in that way? Well, I pretty much, he concludes it here. Thus, there are 96 tattvas, Vishnu says. Those that worship with devotion, worship me in the form of the board, who am other than the aggregate of these tattvas, and without decay, are soon released from agyana, ignorance, and its effects, and become jivan muktas. One of the hidden great messages of the Upanishads is how to be a living, liberated soul. So he says, make sure that you know then I'm different than the aggregates. If they worship me, knowing me that I'm different from them, then it becomes a list that really is beneficial to the seeker, as I was just explaining, and probably overemphasizing because it's important. So these are all 96 cosmic principles that you might make up these three echelons, you might say, of what you need to know to be a knower of the nature of Brahman. Knower of the nature of Brahman with form. See, talking about nature, and then you're talking, like Krishna says in the Gita, nature is, is my outer form, and then prana is my inner form. That's life force that connects all of this together. It's why he put it so high up in the list. And then you're talking about my divine nature, pure conscious awareness. So that's three things there. So you can categorize all these three echelons inside of nature, the great mind, and then including Ishvara and Brahman, and all in consciousness. So it wasn't too painful, was it? I hope that you had 96 things just read out to you that the Lord in human form comes to tell us in every age, so that we can be a knower of everything. We can know what's real. See, these are not imagined things. That's why I'm trying to make a distinction here between something that's thought up in fantasy, imagination, or in some drugged out state or inebriated state, and people thinking things up and then writing clever stories about them, fantasies and imaginations and so forth, and things that are actual. They might not be the formless Brahman, but these wouldn't exist without the formless Brahman within them. Just like all of these things like trees, animals, and land that they're standing on would not exist without Brahman, and could not be seen without Brahman being reflected in the intellect. So a stroll through one chapter of the Varaha Upanisad. Should they just read the rest of it? It'll take us a while to do that. But this is the one chapter that we're focusing on here for these 96 cosmic principles. Let's take a quick look just to get reoriented with a new breath to this chart, because this puts it in a kind of way that is easier to visualize, because the ears have one way of processing what they hear, see, but the eyes have another way of doing it. That's why I like to put charts out. This is number 8 of 409, and it starts off with a quote by the father of yoga. He says, by meditating upon the elements, the senses, and mind, the hidden truth about objects gets revealed. Meditation upon the subtle elements and the sense of I expands thought, awakens wisdom, and tames the ego. Then meditation upon true individual, along with its intelligence, delimits the ego and exposes the font of joy within oneself. The Purusha then transcends the very idea of selfhood and meditates on the awareness of cessation. Thus do the samadhis of knowledge, bliss, and I-ness lead to the formless reality. Wow, is that just perfect philosophy in words by the father of yoga? He takes it up in three things again, And I like that. I've always liked that awareness of cessation mentioned, because wasn't it what I was just saying? What does the East have to teach the West? Cease and desist from your obsession with objects. Like say, doesn't that just have to be someone's obsession, uh, with some food or with an object they really like? Oh, this is my prized object. This can be objects that are up in space. Cease and desist with your obsession with planets to fly to, other planets that don't have any life on them as far as we know. So tell the astronomers and tell the biologists and tell the archaeologists and tell the scientists and tell particularly the politicians, to cease and desist with these lower runs of knowledge, which are based upon senses and elements alone. Withdraw from that and be at peace. Be at peace. So this is what the East can tell, and they can put it in terms of the Ratanabau. This is called a chariot, see, and this is very ancient. Chariots used to be all over the place on the planet, and the way the great souls will use them is in this way. But let me just, I really would love to go through this more, but I'll leave it for you to read again. How to, because you see, if I'm going to withdraw the elements, the senses, and the mind to get the hidden truths of objects, then I have to know about them, right? I have to have a list. And it's so that, oh, well, that's what that's made of, and that's what that goes with that, and this is the order in which they come and go. If I know all this, then I'm well informed, and then I can find out the hidden truth about objects. What is the hidden truth about objects? That they're your thoughts made concretized. They came out of you. They didn't come out of just nature, because all of nature is in you. It came out of you. You're operating it. So the power of solidifying things, the power of liquefying things, the power of moving and stopping things are all powers that are within the jiva. And so this is how Holy Mother puts it. Objects are just thought made manifest. So nobody looks at objects that way. They think, oh, they came out of nature, they're different, I have to go get them. Then when I get them, I can enjoy them, I can amass them. And then unfortunately, I got a little obsessed with them and I have to take them with me after death. Well, I can't do that, but I can still take the karma that associated with them after death. And that's going to bring me back to a world of objects again, without knowing the secret that the whole thing was a mental projection of my own mind, along with 7 billion others so far. Probably more in the Kali Yuga come rushing to do that. So that's just an example of what I was saying. If I were to go through this, the very first sentence alone pretty much illustrates why we want to know 5 elements and 5 senses in the mind, how they all connect. And this is what this is about. So here they are down here at the bottom. There's the 5 great elements. That's called Pancha Maha Bhuta. So Pancha means 5, Maha means great, and Bhutas means, well, it can mean a lot of things, and here it means the 5 gross elements, which are there across the bottom. From subtle to gross, it's ether, air, fire, water, and earth. From gross to subtle, it's the other way. So in evolution, it's coming this way. In involution, it's going back. You see, earth is the last thing to appear. The power of solidity. In the meantime, the thoughts in the ether are turning things, are giving things the power of each of these to turn into a solid realm, like the physical universe. And the physical universe is just a tiny little monica in what's going on in consciousness. Tiny. This whole universe, tiny little manifestation of Brahman, inside of Brahman. So you can see the lines going up to the 5 senses. That's very key. here's one of the things which East can teach the West. And once you can see these and then withdraw them, where do I withdraw them to? Well, eventually to the mind. But that's not putting in all the connections that you need to know. And it makes sense too. Earth goes with the sense of smell, water with the sense of taste, fire with the sense of seeing, air with the sense of feeling, and hearing and ether with the sense of hearing. And what this chart doesn't show, which another chart I can show next week does show, is that there are subtle senses of knowledge that you would put them in right about here if you had a list in this chart to the mind. And you see the prana, the 5 pranas, which he mentions up here right away, the 5 vital airs that he mentions in the other chart, is what's in operation to connect these. If the prana is not in operation, then all the lines are cut between these. And what the result is attachment to the 5 elements. There's pretty much your definition for bondage or for materialism, is that the prana is not flowing inward. It's only playing outwardly in the 5 elements. So that's why I used to say prana is the most addictive substance in the 3 worlds. Everyone loves it. It's much more addictive than drugs, because where are drugs in heaven? With your ancestors. Are you searching for drugs with your ancestors? I want to go back to earth so I can drink water again, so I can walk on land, so I can feel fire, so I can breathe with lungs. See, I like that feeling. I want to go back there and do that again. So this is the predicament of beings not being able to go beyond the kingdoms of heaven, but they're drawn back by the heavy weights of their karma to the 5 elements through the 5 senses. And this is going on in a cycle. I mean, you could put another graph over here saying, here is samsara, here is samsara. And this is where they're going. Souls are going, as we discussed yesterday at satsang? Well, one of the questions there, basically the nadis. That wonderful man in Hungary we like so much was asking about the nadis and how they open, you see, and then to a certain extent how that affects the earthlings, the earthbound souls, and the ancestors and the demigods, basically, is how these nadis are being closed down or open, as the case may be. And that some beings, well, they will ask them to be opened and meditate on opening them, and they'll be able to reach beyond the 5 elements, the 5 senses, and the subtle senses too, which I said are here, but on this particular chart, we'll have to look at it elsewhere. But what is there are the tanmatras and the prana. So these 5 vital airs over here, we can see an English equivalent for them. Basically, that is the life force itself, which is called prana, and that thing that's so addictive to everyone. Oh, I want to go back and experience life again. That's that life force. What did Vivekananda say about that? This thirst for life forever quench. Why? Why should I give up my obsession with prana and embodiment and all this? Because it drags from birth to death and death to birth to soul. That's why. So a great soul, has found this out sitting in meditation. A great yogi, a great rishi has found this out. Wow, I did that so many times and I didn't know I was on a cycle. And I suffered it again and again. So finally I saw through it, and maybe the teaching of 3 bodies helped me see through it. See, I realized that I wasn't just a physical body. I was a body of prana too. And it wasn't just a body of prana, it was a body of thought. And with that thought, I could, which is so powerful, I could transcend embodiment altogether. Why? Because it's been dragging me from birth to death and death to birth. It's been dragging my soul from birth to death and death to birth. So life force alone is a very powerful thing we have to learn about. And I believe it's why Jesus said man does not live by bread alone, because he's talking about man lives by prana. I mean, you could say, well, he lives by God. I don't know about that, you see, because God doesn't like life. God likes eternal life. Why do you find any God here suffering? The only God that's suffering here is you. And that's because you don't believe in eternal life. You believe in physical life only. That's why you're suffering. So I'm not going to drag God down into this mess. Who in their right mind would? Let's just leave God where it is. Formless, perfect, pure, beyond time, beyond space, beyond the five elements, beyond the five senses, beyond the prana even. It's pure conscious awareness. And prana can lead to it, but it ends there. Prana gives up its flow at a certain place. See? And we're getting to that as we get more towards intelligence and the Purusha. That's where prana becomes psychic prana, and then psychic prana stops flowing. Breath stops breathing, right? Lungs stop breathing, just like you do in a good meditation or after you leave the physical body. So a lot about life force is very important in what the East has to teach us. Other forms of that one life force are called expulsion. So that's the out breath, assimilation, aspiration, and pervasion. There's five kinds of prana along with the life force itself. Vivekananda calls them one prana in five forms so that we don't get confused. But then later on, you find him mentioning they don't know about the tanmatras, nor do they know about the psychic prana that connects everything to the mind. So it's random things happening out there on Earth with five elements, volcanoes going off and tidal waves happening. So random things in the five elements. And then the five senses see this, and they're terrified or they're elated, what the case may be. And all of this is happening in the world of phenomena. And where's the witness who can stand back and watch all the phenomena go by and notice that Brahman doesn't change and myself does not change? Okay? And I am that Brahman. So this is why knowing how to get beyond the five senses, five elements rather, because they have subtle elements behind them. So there they are. I mean, earth goes with fragrance, water goes with flavor, and if you want to connect them in, fire goes with visibility, right? And then air goes with tangibility, ether goes with audibility. This is about as good as we can do with English. I mean, it's because Vivekananda said only the yogis see the tanmatras, so we can describe them with English words that are fairly accurate, but you have to know that these are properties of the senses and the elements connected to the mind. That if you're coming down the other way from perfection into, like I was just saying, evolution down to earth, because evolution has something to teach us, something to help us. If we look at it, then you're going to have to know that there has to be thoughts in the mind that cause these things to happen. That's where India insists upon the power of consciousness and intelligence in the formula. You can't take those away and expect everything just to happen by itself. And you can't really bring God into it because God's not an active principle, it's transcendent. So in between here is Divine Mother power, dynamic Shakti. We like to bring her into it because she makes sense of it all. But let's say we don't know about her yet, or we're trying just to figure out the dynamics of 96 cosmic principles right now and how it all works, then we have to go to that idea of chitta. You see, ego, mind, and intelligence. There's another one there called chitta that wasn't in Krishna's mention in the Gita. That means the thoughts. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. I get into union by making the vibrations of the chitta either more refined or go away completely, you see, dissolve, so that I can see myself. The thoughts are in the way. But there's not a lot of thinking going on down here. See, there's a lot of erroneous thinking going on. We can say that about humanity in this day and age. Higher thinking, not at the level of where the connections are. So, and my point is that the power of making something audible, the power of making something tangible, and the power of making something visible is there in the mind and senses, and nobody accounts for it. It's as if that's just missing. So this is why Vivekananda says they don't know about the Tanmatras yet. Since India knows about them, then they know that it all comes from the impulse of will in the mind via intelligence, and they don't take those out of the quotient. I don't know how else to explain it than that. So this is a very powerful thing which India needs to teach the West. The West needs to open up and listen to. There are some things that are sort of obvious that we're looking at, and we will look through this next week and the week after to make more connections for you. Right now, we're sort of taking it as a conglomerate so that all these 96 things that Vishnu just told us in an Upanishad, can have some sort of an image in our mind. And we can say, that makes sense. This really makes sense. This fills in a lot of gaps and holes. I'll go with it until I'm going to have to go to subtler levels of it pretty soon. Like 3 bodies, 5 kinds of space. Right now, it's just one space, and we're beginning to work towards it. So this is my point about prana flowing and the subtle elements involved via intelligence and consciousness. These things are being worked out by higher intelligence. Yes, through the Divine Mother of the Universe, who is the mother of intelligence herself. She's put intelligence in words. She's put them into sentences. She's put them into paragraphs. She's put it into pages. She's put it into books. She's put it into libraries. But basically, it all comes from the cosmic mind. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, if you want to call it. Well, we just read what Vishnu says about it. That's coming from pure intelligent mind when you talk to Vishnu or Sri Ramakrishna, a manifestation of Vishnu in this age. Read the gospel, and you'll find out. Gospel of Ramakrishna, which we're taking so many of these beautiful teachings from. So we kind of work our way up this chart already. It's an old warhorse chart. Like I said, it was number, it's somewhere up there. I think it was number 8. And then we finally get, beyond the horses, of course, are the prana, are the senses of knowledge, we call them. And then we have the reins of prana that need to be connected. The life force that's flowing, that's causing the eyes to see, that's causing the ears to hear, and the tongue to taste. There's a life force there that we want to tune into and magnify, intensify through concentration. All of this is a constant, concerted effort to make connections of things which are, as the Upanishads say, known to all. So these things are known to all, but they're not being connected by very many. It's in the connections that all of this makes a greater sense and also leads you out of bondage into freedom by your own self-effort. See, this wisdom combined with your self-effort is what we call practice and sadhana and so forth, done by the sincere soul who's seeking to get free from all limitations. You feel you want to get free of all limitations. Like even dreams pretty soon become a limitation, even good dreams, because they're, after all, from dreams awake, from bonds be free, know the truth. thou art he, thou art she, thou art the reality behind it all. And so you're looking for ways to break down these subtler, even causal divisions between you and your true nature. Paramatman to Parabrahma, the final division. So if we're looking up here in the remaining few minutes, you see that wow, mind is important, and that everything, all of these, to the reins of prana, all of this is going to get connected back to the mind. Why is that? Because that's where they start. It's not like, oh, there's a mind or there's a brain. You have to say, well, what was in that mind to begin with as a composite, see, as a tattva, because isn't it? It's a fourfold mind. They're already counting it in as something very rudimentary and also very foundational, to the whole thinking process is the mind itself. So that's why we've probably tried to make a distinction between the brain, which people are in the body, an organ in the body, and the mind, which is one of these, which operates the three bodies, right? There's three kinds of minds, too, gross, subtle, and causal. Three kinds of states, as he was telling us in the Upanishad, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. So it's obvious that the mind has this very powerful role to play, but we better start accounting for the fact that everything that we see, taste, touch, hear, and smell, and the various things that are being seen, touched, tasted, and smelled have their seat in the mind. That's how powerful the fourfold mind is. And of course, that mind can then be connected to the cosmic mind. That's where this becomes a fivefold, I like to say. It's another quintuplication. It's that you've got the fourfold mind, but the Mahat is standing there. You're my sons, you're my daughters. All your minds came from the great mind. I'm the great mind. And so that's how Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are really another name for the consolidated Mahat, the great mind of all things. So that, anyway, on and on about this, but here you can see it's associated with Arjuna, who's got those reins in his hands and needs to know how to lead those horses of the five senses along all roads. No, Arjuna's here. Krishna, yes, right. And then Arjuna behind him, right. So basically, ego and intelligence are a part of that. In this particular rendering, as in my chart, you see Lord Varaha is talking about a fourfold mind. What's being left out in this chart is that chitta. I already mentioned that. The thoughts themselves also are important to include into a more fleshed out version of the mind, fourfold mind, they call that. Also interesting to know that behind this whole scene is the unmanifested Prakriti. So already they're suggesting a few things that Lord Vishnu has been talking about in this reading of the Upanishad, that there are five kinds of space, four quarters called Dik Shakti. In fact, there's a Shakti called Dik Shakti that's there who supports the four kinds of space. And then all the other things we read here at the end that have to do with those, all the devas, the gods, and the four-faced Brahma, Shiva, and so forth, also included back here. And they all preside over all the potential that are in the seeds. That's why it's important to know about waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and the three bodies, the stula, sharira, they're called in Sanskrit, stula, and sukshma means subtle body, and karna means causal body. So stula, sukshma, and karna are three bodies that you want to learn about, sheaths, coverings. So that's why it's important to know about them, because inside of them, all of this unmanifested Prakriti is got all its seeds. Just like all of this has its seeds in the mind, and everything else in Prakriti has its seeds in the cosmic mind. And you're going to have to know, for instance, what's sentient there and what's not, what's essential and what's not, what's beneficial and what's not. And by knowing that, you're going to know what's unreal, what's fictional, what's fantasy, what's empty, what's without substance, and so forth. That will come as a part of the knowledge of learning about systems that are so complete like this, adhidaivavidya from ancient India. Yeah. So, I mean, we're able to look at the cover chart. We're able to look at Sri Ram's rendering of consciousness when it's pure, when it's reflected, and associated with the intellect. And then we're able to look at and bring together in this chart a lot of the things that were mentioned by Lord Vishnu in the Varaha Upanisad. In that way, then we're able to come to a breaking point for 6 days while we consider all this, contemplate it all, and then come back again next week and start looking at some of these beautiful additions to the cosmic principles with particular charts of their own, which are also available. Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Pado Padme Toye Shritva Pranamamai Muhur Muhur Om. O Ramakrishna, teacher of all, O Sharda, goddess divine, in bosom holding those lotus feet, salutations to both ever be of mine. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Hari Om